mountainous country, but pretty cool that you get to experience another country tucked in between some of the bigger ones here. So you can see we've crossed the border, the signs have begun to change. And Luxembourg, if you look at the map, it's kind of sandwiched, squeezed in between some of the bigger countries. So where we've just come from to the south, France, to the west as well. To the north you have Belgium, and to the east, where we're going later after lunch, we have Germany. So Luxembourg is tucked in between these three bigger countries, and the global rankings for population and for size, Luxembourg's way down the rankings. So if you say that officially there's something like 194 countries in the world officially, Luxembourg is about 169, 170 on the rankings in terms of size. So it's one of the smallest countries, bottom 30 countries in the world, one of the smallest within Europe. The entire area, it's about 80 kilometers long by about 50 kilometers wide, which is like 50 miles long by 25 miles wide, 30 miles wide. So that's the entire size of the country. And there are 600,000 people who live here. So 600,000 people live in Luxembourg, and of the population, about half of the population are not from here. So half of the population are from abroad, from outside Luxembourg. There's bigger minority groups, like Portuguese actually make up the biggest expats out of the other countries. And yeah, Luxembourg is known for this kind of, almost in many ways, being this representation of Europe in a nutshell in terms of one country, because Europe is very mixed, very diverse in terms of its history, its landscapes, its cultures, its food. Luxembourg is a very good example of that. It's tucked between these bigger countries that share similarities with, for example, France and Germany, and Belgium to the north. And you can see there's some agriculture, there's not much. Most of the industry here is, it's one or two bigger cities that have got some industry. The steel works and the steel fabrication industry is one of the bigger industries here. But the number one industry is going to be your sort of service economy. So it's financial services, banks, institutions, and insurance companies, some renewable energy companies. But when you think about the size of the country of only 600,000 people, I mean, we probably saw that many in Paris yesterday. So it's a tiny country, but very strong quality of, or very high standard of life, quality of life. And by some estimates, if you work out, because people who live here, sometimes people live in France or Germany, they commute into Luxembourg to work. If you live here, because you get certain tax breaks and because you get paid very handsomely, they say that the per capita GDP, that's what each person, if it was per person breakdown per capita, it includes all ages, etc. Something like over 80,000 euros a year is kind of the average per capita, just Luxembourg. Whereas the European Union average is more like 30,000 euros a year. So when you sort of break it down, it is one of the wealthiest countries in Europe. And interesting landscapes. You've got a couple of the bigger cities. The biggest city is just called Luxembourg, but a lot of forests, and it's called the Ardennes. The Ardennes was one of the big campaigns during World War I and World War II. So forested with a couple of bigger cities, and we're going to be stopping in the capital itself. And history-wise, we can go back way back, but we're going to start at about, it was obviously, this part was under the Romans, like most of Europe 2,000 years ago was under the remember old Charlemagne about 1300 years ago. He was around. The Franks, his tribe, took over and held this. And from kind of the 12th century, it got a little bit of independence. So what we're going to see in the center of town was actually an enormous fortress. There still is part of the old fortress, I suppose. So it was set up as a castle with an independent duke. And so the royal family are still called the Grand Dukes of Luxembourg. So a duke rules the kingdom known as a, well, it's not a kingdom if he's not a king, but a duke rules what's called a duchy, D-U-C-H-Y, duchy or a duchy, which is the possession of a duke, and a king rules a kingdom. So the duchy, Grand Duchy of Luxembourg was the official title, and it went on through sort of 12 and 1300s, and then one of the kings of Luxembourg, his name was Henri II, he was actually elected as the Holy Roman Emperor. So remember, the Pope was always the religious leader of Christian Europe, but the political leader of Christian Europe was known as the Holy Roman Emperor, and it was like a rotating presidency. The royal families would all get together and vote who was going to be sort of be the political or military leader. And the heyday in Luxembourg was the 13th to the 1400s, because they gave the Holy Roman Empire 3 emperors. And by the end of the 1400s, they were basically, there was a succession crisis, and it was kind of absorbed into the countries to the north, which are Netherlands and Belgium. So Luxembourg kind of got absorbed into them, and there's actually a pretty close link today still between these 3 countries. They're called the Benelux countries, BE for Belgium, NE for Netherlands, LUX for Luxembourg. So they've got a very close cultural and trade network, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg. And of course, when we get to that period of history, it was actually the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg were all one country. It was all called the Netherlands, but it was all dominated by the Burgundy and the Austrian royal families. So we'll talk about those in a couple of days' time, about the Habsburg royal family. The Habsburgs were an Austrian royal family who basically took over Europe through their marriages. And so the Netherlands, with the Habsburgs, with the Burgundy royal family, ended up ruling here. And it was only when, of course, Napoleon came through all of Europe, he conquered, made this part of France. And when Napoleon was eventually deposed, 1815, his time was over. What did they do? Well, they lumped it back in with the Netherlands and Belgium. But over the next sort of few years into the 1800s, Belgium broke away, became independent. And then Luxembourg broke away as well, became independent. And then in World War I, Germany occupied. Germany marched in as on their way to Paris, because to get to Paris you have to come through here. So they took over and occupied it. And the fortress in Luxembourg, which has been used by all these rulers, all these royal families, was the goal in the town centre. And then once World War I finished, 20 years of independence, freedom, and then World War II started, and again it was occupied by the Nazi troops. And since World War II, when the war finished and Europe had this sort of period of freedom and independence, in a sense, after the Nazis were defeated, there was this idea of working together in collaboration, which was the foundation of the EU. And so Luxembourg is one of those founding members, and today it's actually home to, it's one of the 4 kind of capitals for the European Union. There's a bunch of capitals. The European Courts of Justice are located in Luxembourg, European Union, and it's got this kind of reputation as being the snapshot of modern Europe. Modern EU is represented here, because the official language is actually called Luxembourgish, which is a blend of mostly German but some French. But as you can see on this map here, we are in the square right now. Go up and you take another right. There's another big square there called Plus William II. So these sort of, you can see these areas, this is the very center. Lots of options for food, little supermarkets, shops, souvenirs. So I don't want to walk you around too much and take all your time up. But we'll see you back there at 3 o'clock. Go and get some lunch, do some shopping, enjoy yourself.
Luxembourg is located in the oceanic climate zone with warm summers, cool winters, and temperatures that rarely fluctuate much. It's a climate zone that is common in much of Western Europe and is found in neighboring countries like Germany, France, and Belgium, as well as the Netherlands, Britain, and Ireland. It's located in the Central European time zone, 1 hour past Greenwich Mean Time, and the same time zone that, across the Mediterranean, is known as West African Time. It observes daylight savings, and during it is in the same time zone as the countries in Central African Time, as daylight savings is not observed in most of the countries of Africa. Some version of the name Luxembourg has been in use in the region for over 1,000 years. It was first recorded on a deed in the year 963. A European nobleman, Count Siegfried of the Ardennes, purchased a small rock outcropping alongside a bend in the Alzette River from monks in the nearby city of Trier. The ruins of a small Roman watchtower sat on top of the rock, and locals called the tower and the rock it sat on the Little Castle. In the old High German language they spoke at the time, Luxembourg. Siegfried built a castle of his own, and kept the old name for it. A town and then city would develop around Siegfried's castle and the surrounding lands, and would take the castle's name. Over the centuries, its name would evolve from Luxembourg to Lutzburg, Lutzelburg, Luxembourg, and eventually landing on its current form, Luxembourg. In English, it's translated to Luxembourg, and French and German use similar names for the Grand Duchy as well. Luxembourgers, the country's native people, speak a language called Luxembourgish, but similarly, this is a translation. People from Luxembourg call themselves Luxembourger in their language Luxembourg. Luxembourg's flag is a tricolor with a red, white, and blue stripe. It looks almost identical to the Dutch flag, but has a noticeably brighter shades of blue and red. The colors were taken from the coat of arms of the old House of Luxembourg, a dynasty from Luxembourg which ruled the Holy Roman Empire for over a century. This symbol, called the Red Lion, is the civil flag of the country and a popular symbol. A push in the early 2000s to make it the Grand Duchy's official national flag failed, but drummed up some support as well as controversy. A similar flag is the provincial flag of the neighboring Belgian province, also called Luxembourg. Luxembourg is tiny. It takes up just 998 square miles, or 2,586 square kilometers. This makes it the 28th smallest country in the world, smaller than Samoa but larger than Mauritius. In fact, most of the countries smaller than Luxembourg are island nations, primarily in Oceania and the Caribbean. When it comes to mainland countries, only 5 non-island nations are smaller than Luxembourg, all located in Europe: Andorra, Liechtenstein, San Marino, Monaco, and Vatican City. It is so small that it is sometimes considered to be a microstate, though that definition usually only applies to the tiniest of nations. It is not quite a city-state. The Grand Duchy does have significant rural territory, but revolves around a single city, the urban area of which makes up a large proportion of Luxembourg's land. For my American viewers, Luxembourg is even smaller though just slightly so, than Rhode Island, the smallest of the 50 US states. For my Canadian audience, it's about half the size of Prince Edward Island. Luxembourg has a fairly small population as well. It's the 33rd smallest country on the planet by population. 162 different sovereign states have more residents than it. With 681,000 residents, it has more people than Montenegro and fewer than the Solomon Islands, just surpassed by the Chinese Special Administrative Region of Macau. Stacked up against the US, it has more people than only the sparsely populated Vermont and Wyoming, and even has fewer residents than the District of Columbia. In Canada, it surpasses Newfoundland and Labrador, Prince Edward Island, and the 3 Canadian territories. Luxembourg has a population density of 680 people per square mile, or 261 per square kilometer, 40th in the world, similar to Jamaica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This is a high population density, definitely among the more densely populated countries in the world, but the small nation is still less densely populated than some far larger countries like the UK, Japan, India, Pakistan, and Vietnam. Only 4 US states, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, have a higher population density than Luxembourg. Luxembourg is located in the continent of Europe, particularly in Western Europe. Germany sits to its east, France to its south, and Belgium to its west. Along with its neighbor Belgium and the Netherlands, it is one of the 3 European Low Countries and is part of a political and economic union with the 2 called Benelux, combining the beginnings of their names. Shaped like a roughly crooked triangle with a more pointed northern tip and wider south, its eastern border with Germany begins in the rural valley of the Uhr River, where it borders the German state of Rhineland-Palatinate. It follows the winding course of the river southeast until it meets the larger Sauer River, which flows in from Luxembourg. As the waters meet, the border follows the Sauer downstream. In these border regions, particularly along the rivers, a number of towns and villages lie on either side of the border. As Luxembourg and each of its neighbors lie in the Schengen area, the EU's travel union, it's easy for residents of either country to travel easily across national borders. At the town of Wasserbillig, the waters of the Sauer meet the Moselle River, which flows the opposite direction towards it from the south. There they meet and flow east into Germany. The German city of Trier, just beyond Luxembourg, sits along the river, and further downstream, in the city of Koblenz, it flows into the Rhine. Back in Luxembourg, the border continues south from Wasserbillig, now following the Moselle or Moselle upstream. Across from the town of Heimich, Germany's Rhineland-Palatinate becomes the German state of Saarland. At the small village of Schengen, along the Moselle, the border with Germany changes to a border with France, Luxembourg now lying alongside the French region of Grand Est. It is at this international tri-point that the agreement was first signed abolishing border checkpoints between Luxembourg, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and West Germany, an agreement that has since been expanded to 24 other European countries. Just south of Schengen, the border leaves the Moselle, France sitting to the south. It slices irregularly through farms, briefly following streams, then cutting through more fields and forests roughly westward. A densely populated string of towns, such as Dideleng, Differding, and Esch-sur-Alzette, Luxembourg's second largest city, sit alongside the French border, across from French towns like Russange and Ardon-le-Tiche. West of Esch-sur-Alzette, it continues cutting through fields and along a number of creeks, becoming a border with Belgium to the west, near the town of Pétain. From Pétain, the border winds north. Most of Luxembourg's border with Belgium is with a Belgian province called Luxembourg. Belgian Luxembourg was once part of the Grand Duchy, but was split off in a partition and is the country's least populous province. At the very northern tip of Luxembourg, it briefly borders the Belgian province of Liège until reaching the German border again at the Uhr River. The country is administered through local municipal governments called communes. There are 100 different communes in Luxembourg, but in such a rural country, only 12 are even considered cities or towns. These range from Luxembourg City, the capital and only major city in the Grand Duchy, to Fayenen, a small town of just 1,900 people. Each of the other 88 communes comprise rural areas and the tiny villages scattered within them. For example, the commune of Vincella on the Belgian border is home to a number of small villages, each of which share a single municipal government. The communes are then grouped together into 12 different cantons, which are mostly just used for collecting statistics and electing government representatives. The cantons don't have their own local governments. The country is made up of two main geographic regions, the Eastelijk in the north and Goodland in the south. The entirety of Luxembourg is a hilly country, dominated by rolling hills, sharp cliffs, steep canyons, and low mountains. By far the highest of the Low Countries, much of its north is part of the Ardennes, a plateau stretching into Belgium, France, and Germany. This scenic rise is covered in forests, while rivers and streams like the Uhe, Sauer, and Volts carve sheer canyons and hollows deep into the plateau, farmland lying often along the river valleys.
Some terraces as well, and all sorts of different incredible monuments, sites, buildings, churches, walls, all of the fantastic stuff. How about food? What sort of snacks, what food did you guys get? Ah, the traditional McDonald's?
Yeah, McDonald's,
Burger King?
Burger King. We went to Burger King.
Baguette?
Yeah.
Some of us had some kebab-oriented delights. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very international. It's very international, Luxembourg. It's got this unique kind of international identity. People from around the world. These are some of the big palaces that form part of the other side of town. And there you go, another country ticked off the list, our second country for the day. So breakfast in France, lunch in Luxembourg. We still have a dinner in Germany to go. It's crazy when you think about it. Yeah, within Europe you can drive for a day and you can pass through 3 or 4 countries like that. And they've all got their own history, their own culture, their own language. And there we are. And the temperatures slowly started getting warmer. I know it was freezing when we stepped off the bus, but there we go. Temperature is slowly rising. And there's beautiful buildings. These type of churches like that on the right, you'll see some of them as well in Germany. The region of Germany we're going to be in tonight has its own architecture, its own styles. Because remember, as we said, all these countries, they were not one country. They were made up of dozens of little kingdoms. So in the same way that Luxembourg in its current size, was perhaps one of those little kingdoms, or duchies. We've got all the regions of Germany, all the regions of France, of Italy. They were all tiny independent kingdoms up until pretty recently. So the idea of like a modern country is more of a last 200-year type of thing. And onwards now, we are going to wind our way out of Luxembourg. We're going to head for the German border. And when we get to Germany, I will, maybe even before then, I'll begin telling you a little bit about Germany, the interesting bits of the history of Germany, the incredible bits that maybe you've also not heard about, to do with geography, the sports, the culture, teach you some German language. We're going to have a stop in about an hour 45 to 2 hours time, and that'll be like our mid-afternoon stop, and then we continue from there onwards to Heidelberg, where we will be spending the evening. And get into the hotel, drop our bags off at the hotel, quick check-in, and then onwards to city centre, little walk around. We got our beer hall dinner, and yes, in Germany, some people have been looking forward to the German beer. Oktoberfest is on in Munich, down a few hundred kilometers away, but we can celebrate ourselves tonight with a German beer. tomorrow morning, the old standard 6:30 breakfast, 7:15 departure. Tomorrow morning we will leave Germany, well we'll leave behind, I should say, Heidelberg. We're going to go down through the Black Forest tomorrow. Do a little cruise through the Black Forest, 1 or 2 small stops. Tomorrow afternoon we have our Rhine Falls excursion, so do our Rhine Falls, and then after that we continue going south. We actually cross the border then again from Germany into Switzerland. So we end up in Switzerland. Tomorrow evening we're going into Lucerne for the night. Included dinner as well tomorrow night in Lucerne. And then the next day will be our bucket list mountain lake cruise, and yeah, we're going to be staying in the center of Lucerne, so all of that is coming up. I'm going to come around. There were a few people who said that just let me know if they want to do the last couple of optionals. Just come around and get those final updates if you would like to join. For example, the Rome, the Colosseum, or the Vatican, and then everything's booked in. What I'll do is I'll send around a clipboard now for those who would like to do, who are doing the Austrian Innsbruck Tyrol folklore dinner show. So you have 2 choices of dinner options. You have a drink included as well, which is always nice. There are 2 options for dinner at the show. So there's a soup to begin for everyone. I find this clipboard the right one. There's a pumpkin soup for everybody to begin. They'll ask you what you'd like to drink. You can have a beer or a wine. That show is a lot of fun. There's entertainment, dancing, yodeling, lederhosen, shoe slapping. They run around, they get the audience involved at different points as well. It's quite fun. And so yeah, there's a dinner, so you've got your order. So the clipboard for the Austrian Innsbruck Tyrol dinner folk show is going around. I'll come around if anybody want to add those final optionals, and then rest, relax, siesta. I can come around as well if you need any life advice, relationship advice. I'm not qualified, but I can do my best. Just kidding. I think we're all good, so yeah, take it easy and get back to you when we get to the German border. I did forget to tell you guys, the reason why some things were still closed, why some things in there were boarded up and we couldn't park, etc., was because on Friday they crowned a new Grand Duke in Luxembourg. So they have a royal family, they have the Grand Dukes of Luxembourg, a royal family, and the Grand Duke, or technically the king, but the Grand Duke, he abdicated. He basically gave up and he left the throne. He said, all right, I'm done, I've ruled enough. And he passed it down to his son. So last week, Friday, they had a huge coronation ceremony. The whole country, the whole town had a massive celebration, and that's why things were maybe closed, or there were scaffolding they were taking down. So yeah, we've literally been here 2 days after there was a new Grand Duke inaugurated. So it is, I think it's Guillaume II, William II, who's now the new Grand Duke of Luxembourg. They knew we were coming, so they had to just update things a little bit. So yeah, that's a little bit why I think things were closed and boarded up. Colosseum in Vatican. And you guys have finished, right?